Aha.
Hello.
Right, take two. We've just spent 10 minutes
It's been deleted.
being deleted. So this is going to be, we're going to cut to the chase, sharing some of the tunes we were listening to last night.
I mean, we just did a live session as well down at
Live session, Vinyl Head,
Vinyl
Ramsgate.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. Paying tribute to the guitarist Alan Holdsworth, who died a couple of weeks ago, and the album that he never really wanted to come out, his only album on CTI, probably the most un-CTI typical album that there is, ranging between kind of heavy sort of funk prog fusion and very sort of ethereal guitar duets. Actually, I really like this album. He hated it. It has Narada Michael Walden and Alfonso Johnson as the rhythm section. We listened to a track called Good Clean Filth, and it sounded great.
Yeah, it sounded really good. So from Good Clean Filth to Really Dirty Filth, then moved on to Frank Zappa from Overnight Sensation, played the track Dynamo Hum. It was interesting, there was a long interview with Thundercat on Canadian podcast. He was saying what a big influence Zappa was on his work, and you can kind of hear it a little bit actually as well.
Definitely.
This was the classic lineup, of course, with Ruth Underwood, the Fowler Brothers, George Duke, and so on. That great stuff. Love this period of Zappa. My favourite.
And we stayed with the baritone voice and a little bit of filth, really, with Barry White. Zappa to Barry White are kind of quite interesting.
Romantic filth.
Joining the dots, but there did seem to be a connection in the tone. And we listened to the classic I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More, Baby. The full-length version, strings, breakdowns, heavy breathing, sighing.
Yeah.
And the album is called I've Got So Much to Give. And in fact, I discovered I actually had two of these, so I did give one to John. In the spirit of the sentiment of the album.
Yeah, she always give one to somebody else when you listen
Yeah.
to Barry White. So that was worthy of a really bad comedian. So anyway, there was a very funny exchange on Facebook about how many Mandrill, the kind of band you suddenly realise you got loads of their albums, or maybe not at all.
Yes.
But and you kind of went, how did I have all these Mandrill albums? Where did they come from? But anyway, this is from their second record, and they played the track Apes is High. Their kind of area of music kind of disappeared really. I mean, they were between rock and funk, kind of Santana-ish, but also heavier than Santana as well, I think as well. But yeah, good funky stuff actually. There's always 2 or 3 tracks on each Mandra album that sound really, really good.
We then moved into a release from last year's Record Store Day, and it's the extended mix of unreleased previously of the Isaac Hayes track called Do Your Thing, which features just a little bit of Isaac Hayes at the beginning and then a really extended psych workout from the Barkays that kind of gradually gets more and more fragmented till you get to part 2 on the other side. Big shout out to Stavros, the Spinning Greek, because he showed this as well. Fantastic, it sounds really great, actually great pressing.
Yeah, symphonic almost.
Yeah.
Such extended. Then, it's going to be difficult to see this one, but then just specifically the track called Highlight of I think it was the last Rufus album to have Shaka Khan on, called Camouflage, and just came with a nice track actually. I mean, not the greatest, not as good as their classic earlier albums, but a good album nonetheless actually. And yeah, Rufus and Shaka Khan, you can't really go wrong actually.
Moving ahead to another beautifully produced album, because we had Bruce Swedian on the engineering of the last one. This is Earth, Wind and Fire's album called I Am, and we listened to the track called Star. Beautiful horns, beautiful production, and just a quick shout out anyone who can access the Worldwide FM podcasts that Giles Peterson does. He did a fantastic tribute to Maurice White playing 2 hours of tracks, many of which are not the kind of usual suspects, but like calling on all his work with Ramsey Lewis and Emotions and so great stuff.
Staying in the 70s, we got stuck in the 70s, not for the first time. We usually have a Steely Dan track, and we did this time. Aja, which there's nothing to say about this record really, except it's great. Played the track Deacon Blues. A lot of talk about yacht rock at the moment, and this is this was the kind of more interesting end of yacht rock, I think.
Yeah. Well, yacht rock wasn't a thing at the time, but it seems to be a thing now. This isn't yacht rock at all. This is Brian Auger's Oblivion Express from 1972, I think. And we listen. That doesn't look like a yacht rock cover, really, does it? And neither does that, actually. That's the back. This is the amazing Hammond work of Brian Auger and his largely UK band, and the version that he did of Eddie Harris's Freedom Jazz Dance, which sounds great.
Trawler rock, I think.
Yes.
Tugboat. Then we had an unusual occurrence. We had a system failure, basically. I put a track on and it turned out to be crap, basically. So I've never been a huge fan of War, I have to say, but somehow or other in my head I persuaded myself that Night People off the Music Band 2 was a really good track and I should play it. And it actually sounded absolutely terrible. Yeah. So we took it off.
We did. I think there are some great War albums.
There are.
Galaxy, Cisco Kid, Lowrider.
Yeah. But it might be
the Ghetto.
But it might be a while
that
before
one.
it returns.
Slipping into Darkness.
Eddie
Eddie Henderson's Sunburst. Part of a very strong run of 70s albums. This one probably the spaciest and funkiest, which kind of it has a lot of the same musicians who were on the Mawandishi Herbie Hancock records and some of the musicians who were on the Headhunters records, and he kind of brings them together. And again, it was the second outing for Alphonso Johnson on the bass, and we listened to his self-penned tune called The Kumquat Kids. Sounded very good. Yeah.
Then, a few sessions ago, Mark played a track by Michael Gregory Jackson, who is a guitarist and also played a load of percussion instruments and flute as well. Really interesting guy. Played a lot on the album, played with Anthony Braxton, played a lot on that kind of avant-garde scene, but also made this song-based record called Heart and Centre, where he sounds like something vaguely in the kind of Shuggy Otis almost kind of zone. Very nice songs. Interesting, the backing musicians are mostly kind of avant-garde guys doing a really good passable shot at playing funk and soul music, really. Very nice record, highly recommended. Quite difficult to find this one actually, but and it was on Arista Nova, so the idea that these artists were getting profile from major record labels is really interesting as well.
Yeah, I think everything that I've heard of Michael Gregory Jackson is worth listening to. We had a break and we came back with a bit of a more kind of, I guess, rocky, kind of proggy vibe. Although this isn't really prog, I don't know. This actually really reminded me of King Crimson for some reason, sort of heavy riffing, or almost Black Sabbath or something. But anyway, this was Man. This was an album that I never had when I was a teenager, when I was really into this band, but I picked up recently. It's live at the Paget Rooms in Penarth, and this was
home territory, I guess.
Yeah, in Wales, and this is the classic lineup with Deke Leonard, Mickey Jones, Martin Ace, Terry Williams, and the best version I've ever heard live of Many Are Called But Few Get Up. There's a fantastic review of this on Julian Cope's Head Heritage as well, which I thought really captured the spirit of this record.
Made me really think about the amazing power of it. I probably haven't heard that track for 40 years, I guess, but I can remember every second of it. It's really weird, actually. From around the same time, Traffic, well, not called Traffic, but it is Traffic. Welcome to the Canteen, live album recorded in 1971 with pretty much everybody actually involved with it. Steve Winwood, Rick Gretsch, Dave Mason, Jim Gordon, the Mad Jim Gordon, Jim Capaldi, Chris Wood, and Reebok Kwaku Bar on there as well. Played Dear Mr. Fancy, which is of course a classic, very raw sounding record. This actually really doesn't sound like they did any cleaning up of the sound of it at all. And some great guitar play, again, twin guitars, of this case Dave Mason and Steve Winwood.
Now that particular track used to be a feature of the Grateful Dead set.
It did, yeah.
And this band, Kingfish, were a kind of offshoot band that Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead used to perform with when he wasn't on tour with the Grateful Dead. And we listened to a track, this is their debut album, just called Kingfish. We listened to a great track called Hypnotise. And I was reminiscing about when I saw this band play live at the original Marquee Club in London in about 1977, which was, they kind of felt very much like fish out of water at that particular time, but they were brilliant, and actually, yeah, clearly just guys who played live together a lot, and yeah, it's actually a very memorable gig.
I don't think the Grateful Dead ever worried about being in the water, really.
No.
They never exactly kind of, except for probably when they started. I kind of got started out as and looped back a bit to into Traffic Mode, and
Well, that's fair enough.
And played a track off the first Jim Capaldi album, which was called "Don't Be a Hero." Again, with mixture of kind of Traffic people and also some of the Muscle Shoals people on it. There's 2 or 3 tracks on each Jim Capaldi album which are really good. Actually, there's not one of the albums on its own is not great actually, but there's some good.
I thought it was a great track.
Good.
Actually.
This track is a really
Didn't know that
good
album.
track. Yeah.
Well, we carried on looping in that kind of trafficy vibe, and the first Steve Winwood solo album, which also I think came out in about 1977, and we listened to a track called Hold On, which had the amazing drum and bass combination of Willie Weeks and Andy Newmark. Great album this, and the people who may have got a bit put off by Steve Winwood's 80s output, it's really worth checking in with this album and Arc of a Diver.
That's a classic record. I think it's really underrated.
Yeah.
My last step off in the 70s was really for Joni Mitchell, who's another regular. And again, thinking of great rhythm sections, this one, Max Bennett and John Guerin. Oh no, it's actually Wilton Felder and John Guerin. Played Free Man in Paris off Corton's Park. Big Joni fans here, actually. The whole house full of Joni fans.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Stephen Stills. What's the combination? Oh, the connection was that there was Crosby and Nash doing
singing
VVs,
backing vocals, yeah.
singing backing vocals, and so I was able to slip in a Stephen Stills track. We listened to Old Times, Good Times, which actually features Jimi Hendrix on lead guitar. This again is a fabulous album. I mean, don't be put off by Stephen Stills
With the stuffed kangaroo.
with the stuffed kangaroo or
no, it's not a kangaroo,
playing
it's
polo on a horse.
Yeah.
But great album. Sounded really good.
Right, another break, and then went bang up to date, actually, with but I don't know how you pronounce this, Blinder Blind or Bleeder Blind, and a record called Hindsight Bias. Now I've discovered a new label, which is called Hubro, which is a Norwegian label, which is to me like a proper record label. They've got lots and lots of different artists, very different to each other, and kind of music started off being based around improv, but also includes very highly produced stuff, includes some composed stuff, really interesting, beautiful artwork. First editions of all their records come with on vinyl, well-priced vinyl, with a CD chucked in as well. And this is a band which is basically a trio of I think it's Shahid Ismaili, who's a American bass player and guitarist. So it's basically a guitar-based drums trio, though it doesn't sound like it. So I played the track called Laura, which almost is like a weird disco tune with a mandolin on it and so forth as well. Anyway, check out their stuff.
Yeah, very.
The website. Really
very different.
Very different. Very interesting label.
A rare foray into drum and bass
Yeah.
for our sessions. This is a 12-inch single, and it's actually credited as Zinc. I think it's DJ Hype, and it's the again a version of the Fugees' Ready or Not. It's just called Fugees or Not, which is just actually a beautifully, powerfully arranged piece of music, and kind of prefaced the whole kind of dubstep scene. But I think what we call in the UK a bit of a banger.
Yeah, it is a banger. Most definitely. Moving back just to the pre-dubstep period, played a mix of Massive Attack's Sly from which came from the whole album of Mad Professor. Mixes called No Protection, wasn't it? I think it was. Almost unrecognisable. You can barely hear the original kind of track on. I haven't played any Massive Attack for a long time. Actually, been playing them a bit recently. It sounded good. This is from a promo. I don't know how I ended up with the promo of this, but I did.
We went back to the roots of dub, and this was the dub album that everyone used to have in the 70s. It's from the Joe Gibbs stable in Jamaica, and African Dub Almighty Chapter 3. And I remembered listening to this at a party in a squat with a load of punks in the mid-70s. And we listened to the track called Chapter 3.
So it got distributed by Warner Brothers, this record, which something meant to was around. Mark also reveals that Joe Gibbs tried to sign the band he was in.
It's very true.
Which is kind of interesting. Could have been the hit. History could have been rewritten.
Could have been.
That was my first CD of the night, and recently I've been noticing that the Jamaican version of Catch a Fire has been released on vinyl, but it's some ridiculous price, like £100 or something.
And you have to go to Japan,
to get it. So this double CD has got the Jamaican version on it, and it just sounds amazing. Although obviously the release version of Catch a Fire was great, the original was some stripped back, and a lot of the overdubbed guitars and keyboards are taken off it, and really ethereal, wonderful vocals on it. So if you can afford the vinyl, buy it, but if not, the CD's definitely great sound on the CD.
Very good.
Yeah.
And we flipped back. I stayed in 1972 in Jamaica for some more ethereal harmonies from the Abyssinians.
Yeah.
And this is the 7-inch of their beautiful track called Declaration of Rights, which is an absolute classic.
Much covered as well.
Much covered, yeah.
More different versions of it. Then, I don't know if we had a break, but then we moved into a slightly different mode. And somebody we should have paid tribute to at the last session, actually, was Arthur Blythe, who died recently as well. Alto saxophone player, coming out of a kind of avant-garde roots, but also kind of got signed. One of the many artists who got, not many, but a handful of artists got signed by Columbia, CBS, in the 80s. Much to everyone's surprise, really. Same way as Gregory Jackson ended up on Arista. There was a strange moment with all these artists suddenly seemed to get into the mainstream. And this is from his first album, the first album that came out in Columbia anyway. He had other stuff out on Indian Navigation before. Called Lennox Avenue Breakdown, played Down San Diego Way, which is a fantastic track.
Fantastically joyous. Celebratory track.
Yeah, great band with James Newton, Jack DeJohnette, James Bloodalmer, Cecil McBee, I think.
Yeah, it's really kind of quite unlike any other track.
Yeah.
Just almost ecstatic.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Then someone else who passed away last year, who we have tributed many times, but we haven't played anything from this album before, which was one of the 70s Blue Note albums by Bobby Hutcherson, called Knucklebean, which, interestingly enough, John also had in his box.
Yeah, that's right.
And we listened to the lovely track called Little Bee's Poem, which features Freddie Hubbard on the trumpet.
Which I think he recorded at least 3 versions of, I think. Actually, it's a great tune, I think. Staying with the jazz thing, then went into the first Gateway album on ECM, which was Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, and John Abercrombie. Played the track called Backwoods Song, which is I think was based on an improvised bass line by Dave Holland. Kind of very, I think I've said this before, this is really my favourite period of ECM, almost, that kind of time. Great stuff, actually.
Yeah,
very good.
Really nice.
All the Gateway albums are worth getting, but the first one was classic.
Last session, John gave me a birthday present, which was this Pat Martino, guitarist, the album Consciousness, that I didn't know at all, actually, which is a really fantastic record, amazing guitar playing from Pat Martino. We listened to a very kind of quite sort of ethereal, quite dark track called Willow. But yeah, really lovely playing. And somehow the cover here does sort of sum up the vibe of the record, particularly Willow, actually. It's very willowy there. Yeah. Sort of sitting on a stone in a pond.
And the backup band with the band that became Catalyst later on, which was a classic kind of a band that most people didn't know about, really, but it did a lot of really interesting stuff. I mean, that record either makes guitarists want to totally inspired and makes me want to give up. I'm told as well. I'm not being a guitarist. Stayed with the guitar, then went to Bill Frisell and played his version of "What's Going On," which is, sorry, I heard it through the grapevine. Beg your pardon, Marvin Gaye song, in a trio with Victor Krauss, the bass player, who's Alison Krauss's brother, and Kenny Wollesen. Sounded amazing.
Fantastic.
I mean, he's just Bill. I've been in a Bill mode recently, and he's just an amazing guitarist, really.
There was something about.
So it's from an album called East West, which is a live double album, I should say.
The only connection really with this next track is there was something about the mood of that and the spaciousness, and the looping. Actually, Bill Frisell does some really interesting work with his DL7, I think it's called. Anyway, it's a line 6 looping pedal because I have one myself. We listened to The Taut and Tame by Tortoise from the album Millions Now Living Will Never Die. Very short track, but some bass looping stuff.
Yep.
Sounded nice.
There's always been a bit of a can thing for me with Tortoise, actually.
Yeah.
And went for the track A Spectacle, which is off the one of the, I think this possibly the second to last Can album. Kind of period where Holger Zucker had stopped playing bass and was still working with the band as a producer and mixer and so forth. This is apart from having a horrible cover, it's actually a nice record. Actually, there's 3 or 4 really good tracks on here and a couple of absolute stinkers as well. Things that are absolutely terrible. But anyway, it's so it's in that nice reissue series from Mute recently.
Quite sure what the connection was here, apart from sort of doing something a bit different. This was an album which I got from Dusty Groove, and apparently I got it just before John got it.
That's right.
John was after it.
I had it in my basket and suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, it's the album Expression, which actually it was called something else when it came out in 1958. But it was kind of just when Yusef Lateef was really beginning to get quite experimental and really bringing in sort of the kind of world Eastern influences. And we listened to the track called Anastasia, which sounded lovely, beautiful flute playing. Unfortunately, someone's written all over this, but
and quite majorly written.
Quite majorly, but that's why it was only $6.99,
which is definitely good.
Which is a bit of a bargain.
I've had this in the box for quite a while actually. And this seemed to be an opportunity to play. It was Airs, not the French kind of group, but the American group with Henry Threadgill, Fred Hopkins, and Steve McCall. One of the Chicago, a kind of spin-off from AACM groups. Henry Threadgill's an amazing composer, musician, very influential on a whole generation of players. And this is from the Open Air Suite, which was again on Arista Nova. So this is another one which got proper distribution. It's a nice recording, and played the track "The Jig or Mandrel's Cosmic Ass," and you can see that Mandrel's Cosmic Ass on the cover, in fact, as well. Remember seeing Air in London, played a big venue, the Roundhouse in London, around this time, and they were a fantastic band, really good band. 5 or 6 records on American labels. Also, they did several on Japanese labels as well. So that's Air.
Flowing on with some sort of just quite experimental jazz stylings, we had an album by Hopper, Dean, Tippett and Galavan, which is Hugh Hopper, obviously, who was the bass player with Soft Machine, Elton Dean, Keith Tippett and Joe Galavan on the drums. And we listened to a track called Echoes, which had some wonderful piano playing from Keith Tippett and some wonderful sax from Elton Dean.
Yeah.
And actually some great drums from Joe Galavan. I couldn't really hear Hugh Hopper very much.
No, that's right.
But quite an abstract album, and it seemed to work nicely with the Air.
In fact, Elton Dean, of course, was in Soft Machine as well.
He was, that's true.
And keeping with that kind of slightly rock-influenced kind of jazz avant-garde thing, went for the track Marbles off John McLaughlin's Devotion, which has a number of different covers. This was one of the reissue that was on celluloid, with Buddy Miles, Larry Young, and somebody called Billy Rich, who I have to say to me sounds a lot like Billy Cox, but I don't know whether it was him or not. Billy Rich probably did exist, and I'm probably doing him a terrible disservice. But anyway, pre Mahavishnu.
Yes.
Post Miles, but pre Mahavishnu McLaughlin.
Quite wild.
Very wild, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Larry Young sounding very good on it as well.
This was a record store day well, it wasn't a store day purchase because I didn't go to record store day, but I'd pre-ordered it, and then it turned out it was part of record store day. Anyway, it's the EP of 4 tracks, well, 3 tracks actually, that hadn't been released on their own before by David Bowie. We listened to the second track called No Plan, which was very moody.
Making its second appearance, because I think I played it off the soundtrack.
Did you?
Session, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounding good.
Yeah.
Then back to my new label, well, not my new label, but my new interest, Hubro. This is another recent release from them, which is with a band called 1982, which has got an extraordinary lineup of harmonium hardanger fiddle, which is a Norwegian fiddle, and drums. And they've done several records. And on this one, they're joined by BJ Cole, the pedal steel player, who's played with just about everybody. And very, very almost ambient sounding, but with very interesting, again, very interesting music. And again, comes with a free CD. And good artwork, check out Hubro. I'm not being paid by them to promote.
Another newish album. It just sort of seemed to fit with the general kind of production and sound of the BJ Cole. This is Volcano Choir, and this is a collaboration between Justin Vernon from Bon Iver and collections of colonies of bees. And I think sort of is the sort of the sequence that makes sense between Bon Iver, how they used to sound, and what their last album was sounding like. Just really interesting use of technology with acoustic instruments.
Definitely. Going fully acoustic now on this next one. Somebody else who's recently passed away is Bruce Langhorne, who was Mr. Tambourine Man. In fact, he was the person who Bob Dylan wrote the song for, and he played with Bob Dylan on 2 or 3 of his early records. He also played on Pat Garrett's soundtrack, and he did the soundtrack for a film called The Hired Hand, which was Peter Fonda's film he made after Easy Rider, and this has just been reissued on vinyl by Scissortail Records in the States, and very, very minimalist, moody, incredibly influential, again on lots of different people. You can hear how a lot of people heard this record or heard the music in the film, and kind of very, very sparse, very, very kind of sounded like it.
What was the album we heard in Vinyl Head which sounded like it?
It did. It was a new, I can't remember. It was a new analog recording of I didn't actually catch the name of it actually.
A sort of all-female band from Nashville.
Yeah. So you can hear the influence in some of Ry Cooder's soundtracks. It was recorded originally in '69. The film's great as well. It hasn't really got much of a story, but amazing cinematography. It really looks like a really good film. Yeah. So Hired Hand, 45 RPM.
Very nice. The Awakening, Ahmed Jamal. We've featured this in many incarnations, but it's just been re-released on vinyl. And probably one of my top 10 jazz albums, actually, I think now. I didn't know it till last year, but we listened to The Awakening. Lovely pressing, really stunning album, highly recommended.
I then went for, keeping with the Ahmad Jamal connection, went for New Rumba off Miles Davis' Miles Ahead, which is and this is the mono issue which came out a couple of years ago, which sounded pretty good. Anyway, so it was the first collaboration between, second I guess, because it's Birth of the Cool, but the first orchestral collaboration with Gil Evans.
We were in the sort of wind down zone, and I just thought it was time to have some more falsetto lead soul. And we had the Chai Lights and the beautiful voice of Eugene Record, and we listened to the track. I think it was "Go Away Dream." Was it "Go Away Dream"? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, lovely stuff.
I'm not sure what was your next one.
That's David Sylvian.
Okay. I said you only still have 1 record. I think there are 3 left.
Oh, go on, John.
Very odd. I don't quite understand what's happened. We seem to have got out of sync. No, we haven't got out of sync actually.
No.
Because I think you've left one out of the file actually. And then you can only follow the Chai Lights with stylistics really, and played Payback is a Dog, off the record with the awful cover, Rock and Roll Baby, which was, and basically I just love the stylistics. Produced by Tom Bell, full Philly sound, sounds amazing. Really.
What's next, John? I think you've got that one then.
Yeah, I did then definitely played this one after.
You did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But maybe I played 2 in a row.
Maybe you did.
I think you played something else actually.
Well, there's nothing here.
Okay. Then played an album called Vijay Iyer, who I really rate, who's a kind of contemporary pianist, plays in a trio with Stephen Crump and Marcus Gilmore, and played his version of Star of the Story, which is by Heatwave. Amazing kind of jazz trio, almost kind of with slight kind of, it's difficult to describe, almost amazing kind of breakdown of that song. If you know the song, it's a classic ballad, but
Grooves hard.
grooves hard. Yeah.
Somehow we then went from that to David Sylvian's Gone to Earth, and we listened to the final track on side 4, which is called Upon This Earth, and we couldn't quite work out whether we were listening to Bill Nelson or Robert Fripp on guitar, but we agreed they both sounded a bit like Pat Metheny. We drifted off with this track.
Yeah.
This is the David Sylvian album where one album has vocals on and one album is all ambient, a bit like Low in that respect.
Yeah. Then finished off finally with the Twin Peaks theme. This Twin Peaks is coming back in 3 weeks. I'm very excited about Twin Peaks coming back. Always love this. I always love the music associated with this, the 2 series and Firewall with me. And yeah, so anyway, Twin Peaks. The owls are coming.
Yes, the owls are coming and we've got a general election.
Yeah, which I think I'm probably less interested in Twin Peaks, because it's the day after Twin Peaks kind of thing.
We will be into another new surreal chapter of our time on Earth.
Yeah.
And yes, thank you people for all the comments and subscribers, and we'll see you soon. We may try and let people know when we're going to be doing this sort of live DJ session. We'll try and work that one out. Yeah. Okay.
See you later.
See you later.